Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Laura Fortman, and I'm the Commissioner of the Maine Department of Labor, and I'm joined by my colleague.
Hi, I'm Kim Smith. I'm the Deputy Commissioner.
And we appreciate you spending some time with us this afternoon to get a top-line update on unemployment insurance in the state of Maine. Although this briefing is intended for legislators, we do know that others join us through Facebook, and we hope that you will find this information useful as well. In putting together the overview and the slides for today, we try to take into consideration any of the questions that we have received since our briefing last week. Admittedly, we have a 1-hour time frame, and so what we've done is focused on the issues that we receive the most questions about in hopes that it has the broadest applicability for this afternoon. I think I want to just start by saying again, just a kind of a quick reminder about unemployment insurance. As you all know, unemployment insurance is a federal-state partnership, which means we must be in compliance with both our state regulations as well as federal regulations. Earlier this week, on Tuesday, July 21st, we received some additional guidance from the U.S. Department of Labor about how to implement the CARES Act programs, and there are a few items that we will highlight as we go through today's presentation. One of the core messages is, as always, in order to be eligible for unemployment insurance, you must have lost a job through no fault of your own. You must be able to work, available to work, and actively seeking work. Although there's flexibility around those able to work, available to work, and actively seeking work because of COVID, those are kind of foundational principles. And even with the flexibilities, those core principles are still kind of baked into the rules for both state unemployment insurance programs and pandemic unemployment assistance. And in particular, the U.S. Department of Labor has clarified one question that they've received from around the country, which is around pandemic unemployment assistance and who is eligible for it. And the question, and I think we've heard it, I know I've heard it from a number of people here, is if an individual becomes unemployed for reasons unrelated to COVID-19 and now is unable to find work because businesses have closed or are not hiring due to COVID-19, is he or she eligible for pandemic unemployment assistance? And the answer from USDOL, the most recent guidance, the answer is no. An individual is only eligible for pandemic unemployment assistance if the individual is otherwise able to work and available to work, but is unemployed, partially unemployed, or unable or unavailable for work for a listed COVID-19 related reason under, and then it goes into the section in the law. Not being able to find a job because some businesses have closed and or may not be hiring due to COVID-19 is not an identified reason. So I just wanted to highlight that one issue in particular, because I know we're receiving questions about that, and I'm sure many of you are. So I think Jess will jump into some of the slides that we do have for this week. So many of you ask, and we consider March 15th the beginning of the pandemic here in Maine, and that's when actions were taken by both the legislature and the governor. So that's the date that we're using to measure all of these data points that we're providing. So as of now, 96% of initial claimants have received a determination. And a determination falls into kind of three categories. They've received a benefit payment, so approximately 85%. That's up a few percentage points from last week when we met. Approximately 131 people have received benefits since March 15th. Approved for benefits, but not filing weekly certifications. So this is a group that we spent a fair bit of time talking about last week. And these are the folks that we are regularly reaching out to, we send emails to. Also, about 2,300 of them have just applied. So they may just not, it may just not be timely for them to file their weekly certification yet, but they're included in that 11,000 number. And then there are a group of people, about 3%, who have been determined to not be eligible for benefits. And some of these folks may have been receiving wages, so their earnings may exceed the benefit amount, or there may be some other reason that they are not eligible. The remaining 4% of the claimants are the folks that we're going to spend some time talking about today. And these are the people that we've been spending, focusing most of our efforts on. Our goal is to get people their benefits as quickly as possible and make sure that anyone who is eligible does receive their benefits. At the same time, doing all of the due diligence possible to prevent any fraudulent payments from going out. So Kim?
I think that's a great summary. Why don't we move to the next slide? So the bar charts that you're seeing on the left-hand side of the screen show our show how the claimants break down over the last month. So you can see back on June 27th, we had just over 148,000 people who had applied. We are now, as of July 23rd, at just over 153,000 people. And breaking down each of those categories, the blue, that's the top section, are those people that we have made payment to. So you can see, looking at the July 23rd date, we're now at 131,000 people roughly. This is up from 122,000 a little bit, just about a month ago. The red section, that's the next section down, are those that the commissioner just talked about. They have been approved for unemployment, but have not filed a weekly certification. The next section down, the orange section, 4,300 people are currently ineligible. That's the 3% that the commissioner was just talking about. We have another 2,300 that are flagged as potentially fraudulent, and we are waiting for those folks, if they are actual Maine claimants, to provide their proof of identity. And then the bottom group that's in the light blue, those are the individuals, 4,300 currently, that are being processed here at the department. And that's down from 6,500 at the end of June. And we wanted to get into a little more detail about that 4,300, which is on the next slide.
So again, Deputy Commissioner had gone through the barcode on the left, and on the right-hand side of this is kind of a pie chart that looks at that 4,300 group of people who are in the being processing category. The light blue section there are 700 people in there who have been reviewed and found ineligible for state unemployment insurance, and they're waiting for a pandemic unemployment assistance determination. In that group, there are almost 600 people who they get divided into a couple of different groups. At least one group in here have been answered some of the COVID questions, but not all of them, and will be receiving a notice in the next few days and providing them the opportunity to answer all of the pandemic unemployment assistance questions. And again, depending on their individual circumstances, they may or may not be eligible, but they will have an opportunity to answer the questions, and then a determination will be made. And we anticipate that the determination process will happen very quickly. Another group, it says awaiting B1. The B1 form is an employer verification form, and there are about 500 people in this, this bucket. And as I said a few weeks ago, if you remember, we have reinstated our normal 10 to 14 day processing time for the B1s. And so this number is not a backlog, but more a reflection of the current state of sending out B1s, and that these are primarily the time lag for this is primarily in that 10 to 14 day processing time. So that number will fluctuate, but it will go down over as we get the information in from employers. The, the kind of purple section is the pending status, and there are about 200 people in that group. We talked about this a little bit, I think 2 weeks ago, and these are folks who there may be a name mismatch, different information between the employee and the employer, as well as there may be Social Security numbers that we can't line up. So this group of about 200 we're actively working on to resolve those issues. And then the largest group of people, 66%, about 2,800 people are waiting for fact finding. And today we thought we'd spend a little bit of time going through fact finding. So as you can see from this slide, so these are all of the fact findings that that have been scheduled from March through July 23rd. The March, we still have a small bucket that's obviously, as it should be, the smallest group of people who are waiting for fact finding in there. We have 45 people in that group, about 2%. April, about 103. And our efforts have been, we're working from oldest to most recent cases, and we have streamlined the fact-finding process. But the groups that we've been looking at most carefully are the oldest claims. Also, as you can see from the fairly small numbers of people in these categories, these are the toughest issues to resolve that are in there. And in May, we have 618, or about 22%. June, about 1,100 people. And then in July, there are 958 people. So as you can see, we are dealing with those in based on the aging. We have not only, we talked before about adding the law students this summer, we've also changed our processing, and I mentioned last week that we are, instead of just scheduling fact-finding interviews out into the future, we are working through those as quickly as possible, contacting the claimants and the employers, asking if they are willing to waive their 5-day notice in order to process these claims more quickly. Again, no one has to waive that 5-day notice, but what we are doing is contacting someone, asking them if they are available and willing to answer some of the questions and participate in the fact-finding when we contact them. If they say no, which is their absolute right, we will send them a letter and then schedule the fact-finding in that appropriate 5-day time frame. But we are working weekends on these, and we have shifted to having our most experienced adjudicators on this kind of expedited fact-finding process. Kim, I don't know if you wanted to add anything to that.
No, that was a great summary of where we are. So we also wanted to talk about a few of the things that are coming up in the coming weeks. And so first on the list is the income verification for people who are collecting pandemic unemployment assistance benefits. So as I'm sure you know, when we rolled out the PUA program, we started all individuals at the minimum, which is $172 per week, and said that we would be coming back out to those individuals to verify their income to see if they would be eligible for an increased amount. So we are starting that process, and actually have now broken that into 2 phases. And the first phase will be as matching as many people as we can to income information that's already available. So we estimate that about 60% of the individuals who are collecting PUA, that we will be able to verify their income, and they will not need to upload any documents for us to do that. And so in the coming days and into next week, we will be notifying people first if we have matched them up with the information that we have available, and if we have, what their new weekly benefit amount will be. And then the second phase of that is we will be notifying people that we were unable to match, that they do need to upload documentation. Also, I'm sure you're all aware that payments for this week, the week ending July 25th, are the last week that are covered by the federal pandemic unemployment compensation program. That is the extra $600 a week. So we know most folks will be filing their weekly certification for this week starting on Sunday, and then we'll be receiving their payments into next week. Usually they get those payments on Tuesday. So that right now will be the last week that is covered by the additional $600.
That does not mean, there's been some confusion out there that the Pandemic Unemployment Assistance Program is ending. I think all of you know that these are 2 separate programs. The federal Pandemic Unemployment Compensation Program, the $600, is on top of any benefit, either a state unemployment benefit or the Pandemic Unemployment Assistance benefit. And PUA will be in effect through the end of the year. It ends on December 26th, the week ending December 26th. So even though the federal Pandemic Unemployment Compensation Program is slated to expire, the Pandemic Unemployment Assistance Program will continue. And that was one of the reasons why over the next 10 days or so, we want to make sure that anyone who is eligible for a pandemic unemployment assistance payment of more than the base 172 has an opportunity to either through us just doing the automatic matching, or if we're unable to do that, that we provide them an opportunity to give us the necessary documentation to make any sort of redetermination. I also want to say that there's no, if someone does not have that documentation readily available, the program permits for us to accept that additional documentation through the end of the year as well. So even though we're trying to get it done over the next couple of weeks, if the person does not have the documentation, their opportunity to provide it does not end imminently. They have until the end of the year to do that.
And the other piece that I wanted to add on the extra $600 is that it is for the week ending July 25th. So most people are going to file for that week on Sunday, the 26th. We know that. But also we know that some people may go into the first week of August, and they have 2 weeks to file a certification. So it's not for claims filed before July 25th. It's for the week ending July 25th. So even if you, on August 1st, if you filed for that week, you would still be getting the extra $600.
Right. And that's a good reminder, because we've also been asked what happens if someone, for example, one of the people who's in FactFinding, what happens if we don't resolve that until after, after Saturday, and they are still eligible for that $600 retroactively as long as they're eligible. So it's, as Kim said, it's not that the money ends then, it's that the eligibility for that resource ends then. And again, I'm sure like all of you, we are carefully monitoring what Congress is doing, and will do our best to implement anything that they enact, if they in fact do any sort of an extension. So I think the other thing that we wanted to share with you is about a week or so ago, we shared a draft work search screen. The work search has been waived, and we have two groups of people who will begin engaging in work search. One is a group of people who no longer are attached to their employer. So they've been permanently laid off from their previous job. And that work search begins the week beginning August 9th. And when we shared our initial draft screen, many of you had some comments. And so we have taken those comments into consideration, and we want to share an updated version that is under development. I also did want to just stress that that our career centers are available to help people with job search, and they are offering virtual trainings. And in particular, they have two trainings. They offered two trainings this week and will again next week on Tuesday and Thursday to walk people through how to fill out their job link profile, which is a requirement when you start looking for work. Your resume is included on the job bank. There are currently a little over 12,000 jobs listed on the job bank. And this is a great opportunity for both employers to list jobs there for free. And there are new tags, I'm not sure if tags are the right word, but indicators for some of the, like green energy jobs that are available as well. So there are a variety of jobs posted on that job bank. So this is, as it says, it's in development, so this is not up yet. We heard that people were concerned that if you're self-employed or you're not sure whether or not you're covered by the work search that starts August 9th or the one that starts September 5th, that it might be confusing. So we've added an initial page that basically asks you those questions. Were you self-employed, and do you plan to return to self-employment? And it's yes or no. And then the next question is, are you in contact with your previous employer about returning to work in the future? Again, yes or no. This is self-attestation. The work search had been waived for people who were in contact and remain in contact with their employer, and they have a reasonable expectation that they will be returning to work. If you are answering yes to either of these questions, you will just, the next screen that you would see is your normal weekly certification. If you are neither self-employed or in contact with your previous employer, then you would get this screen. And this is where we start asking those questions about, have you been looking for work? Kim.
Yeah, so as the commissioner said, the first question is, did you look for work during the week, yes or no? The second question, did you participate in any career center reemployment services or workshops or attend a job fair hosted by the career center during the week, yes or no? If yes, then you're asked to pick which one of those things applied. If you answered no, you didn't look for work or you didn't participate in any of those other activities, you need to explain why you did not look for work. And then I don't believe we have a screenshot of it, but the next screen would be asking for the details of what employer you spoke with about employment.
And Maine is one of the states that takes into consideration any reemployment services as also being actively engaged in looking for work. So the Career Center does have a list of workshops that are available that people can participate in. They've been modifying their workshops so that things are available virtually. And it's the website is mainecareercenter.gov. And then you would just pull up the workshops and see what the variety of options are for any particular week. But the career centers work closely with a wide range of workforce development partners, and the partners offer a host of workshops and training opportunities as well. And they are all trying to adapt to the COVID-19 environment and making sure that programs are offered virtually. Okay, I think that was about it. The only other thing I did want to point out was one of the questions that USDOL answered that was different than previous guidance that we have provided is about self-employment. That we had been telling people on the weekly certifications that they should report their self-employment as net self-employment, and many states were doing that. And USDOL has said that is not the correct interpretation, that that in order for someone who is self-employed and is in the process of reopening his or her business should be reporting their earnings for the week as a must report gross income when filing a continued claim. This can get a little confusing because on the weekly certification, they have said that you must report it as gross income, yet for the benefit determination that, that self-employed people will be receiving, it's the net income that's reported there. So we will be providing additional information and guidance, and our goal is to we've already changed the Q&A on the website, and we will continue to make those adjustments. And we know this is confusing, and it's unfortunate that it's taking, so long for the Department, U.S. Department of Labor to provide this clarification, but they have, and so moving forward, this is what we will be complying with.
And so we will be reaching out to those who are collecting PUA benefits to make sure that they are aware of this change, and that going forward, after that notification, they will need to provide their gross income on the weekly certification.
So I can see that there are
so we have a couple of questions up there about status of constituents, and our plan is to follow up later today with information on that as far as where they fall in those categories that we talked about earlier.
And the chiefs of staff for each of the caucuses were given an update last night on, again, a top line overview of status of particular claimants, but we will again follow up with more information later on today. Peggy, I don't know what Max's question is.
So on the work search, the draft of the new work search, I assume the answer to number 2, the second question for self-employed people would always be yes. So the second question, which asks if you're in contact with your employer, is aimed at people who work for someone else. Usually we refer to them as the W-2 workers. Yes or no, are they still in contact with their employer? But there is no harm for a self-employed individual to say yes on that as well.
Yeah, but the goal is that you need to be either self-employed or you need to be in contact with your employer. But a yes for either of those questions would automatically move you into your regular weekly certification. Could answer to BNA self-employed. Yeah, it's, so the question is, could it be NA? Yeah, there's no requirement to fill in both of the questions.
Actually, I believe both questions are required.
Are they? Okay, so I think we could see if we can tighten that up.
We'll take a look at the question. Sure. Are you able to offer training to people who might want to move into the direct care workforce? There is still a significant shortage and there are lots of opportunities for career changes. We will be holding job fairs for this particular workforce. These were all recommendations of the Long-Term Care Workforce Commission that could be implemented, and I can't read the rest of that. So,
recommendation of long-term care workforce that could be implemented as people are looking for new opportunities. If not, will you be working with DHHS on this soon? I mean, we work with, you know, before the pandemic hit, we were working very closely with DHHS on this. And there had been a number of job fairs that were specifically targeted toward healthcare, and I would anticipate that that would continue. An employer's been locked out of her sides account. How's this best fixed? Why don't we get back to you on that?
yes, we will find out.
So, Commissioner, if I may,
Sure.
So teacher questions are starting to bubble up.
Yeah.
Summer employment and the reasonable assurance issue. I'm really new to this, so bear with me. If a teacher has one of those letters, and normally has summer employment, but because of COVID does not, are they eligible for PUA?
Mm-hmm. So, Senator, I wish I could just answer that quickly, and I cannot. That issue has just come up, and we're working with our Attorney General on getting an answer to it.
Okay.
Because,
yeah, because we're in the thick of their usual summer jobs, and as you know, or likely know, many teachers have second, even third jobs to make ends meet. So that'd be what's the time frame that you would estimate on getting?
It surfaced with us yesterday, and we're trying to get an answer by early next week. And you know, there are a couple of categories. It's both teachers, so it's the professional staff as well as other staff, and we just want to make sure that that if there's any distinction in terms of the application of the law, that we're clear about it.
Okay, because I guess there, you know, with other claimants, there's some inconsistent responses from staff who are answering calls. So hopefully we can get that cleared up. That would be great. Right. So I'll wait to see how all that pans out before I ask my other questions that have come up around it.
Yep, and we'll circle back with you and others. And I see Isaac writing this down on his list, so we will definitely keep track of it. And it's we understand the urgency of it, and the folks who are answering the phones are also aware of it as well. And we're on our list. Thank you.
We have another question about a self-employed, unemployed worker who has had a fact finding and subsequently received a denial for regular unemployment. Should he assume that this will roll over to PUA, and how long should this take? So there's two different groups of people that fall into that bucket. So there are folks who are self-employed that applied prior to the PUA application being available. If they did, that just means that they weren't given the series of questions that relate to PUA. So once they've been denied for regular state unemployment, they would then, as long as they're filing their weekly certifications, be prompted with those questions when they file a weekly certification. And then depending on if those situations apply to that individual, then we would determine whether or not they're eligible for PUA. So the second group is those who applied after May 1st. They were asked those questions, and we should be able to then move them into the PUA program. So once the questions are answered and once that denial is issued, it's usually within about a week.
Mm-hmm. But again, I think if people are, they need to continue to file the weekly certifications. The weekly certification is where those questions would pop up.
So we have a question about Workshare.
Workshare.
Mm-hmm.
So the question is, there seem to be some serious problems with Workshare, that constituents are calling the 800 number, and that her issue would be addressed sooner or later, but probably later, an employer issue, and it says, and the employer was told it was a DOL issue. I think we spent a little bit of time a couple of weeks ago talking about Workshare. Workshare is a layoff aversion program. It is being used during this pandemic in a slightly different way. And it is a very manual process with multiple steps. I mean, before I had said that unemployment insurance is a federal-state partnership. Workshare is very much an employer, Department of Labor, and employee process. The employer, first of all, Workshare is not for every employer. That if employers see fluctuations in their, how they need to the number of hours that they need to have workers, if that fluctuates on a regular basis, that this is probably not a good program for that particular employer. There's a plan that's entered into with the Department of Labor, and you can have people, everyone needs to be treated the same, whether it's their entire business or a particular unit of folks, but you're going to see a reduction. Instead of working 100% of the time, you may be working 80% of the time, anything up to 50% of the time. And if you know that, you're just kind of gearing back up and you think you're going to be at about 60% capacity over the next couple of months, and then you're gradually going to go up to 75 and 80, that this program might be a perfect fit for you. But if your business, like this week, I may need everybody in here 100% of the time or 90% of the time, and next week I may only need people 50% of the time, that kind of dramatic fluctuation, this program is not suited for. And every week, the certification from the employer needs to match what they provided to the department in terms of what their plan is, and the weekly certification that the employee provides must also match what the employer provided. So there is, unfortunate, and it's not an automated process. So it is incredibly labor intensive. Each employer has a point of contact in the department. So calling the hotline, those folks on the hotline are not the people who have the Workshare expertise, unfortunately. They can provide some general information and some help, but it really is the employer contacting their like account manager within the Workshare unit, that is the way to resolve those issues. And we are aware of the challenges, and we are working to address them. Some of them, our ultimate goal is to automate more of the process. But until we get there, we know that it's challenging, because anytime you have multiple pieces, the possibility of someone entering something incorrectly on a weekly certification is just much higher. And we've also heard from some people, Kim and I work at the same place. Why did she get her benefit? I didn't get mine. And part of it is because it's not universal. It's not everyone at that workplace. The amount, even though we're both working 80%, my weekly benefit is determined by my previous earnings. I may have been at the company for 10 years and I'm making the maximum amount in my weekly benefit. Kim may have just started, entered the workforce fairly recently, and her benefit amount may be different. So there's lots of variation in this program, but we do think that it is it's a good match for certain kinds of employers, and we want to make it work more smoothly, and it is on our radar screen.
So the next question is about if people have been reporting their net earnings, people who are self-employed reporting their net earnings, will they have to refile? No, they will not have to refile. And our intent is that the gross earnings be reported going forward after we send notification to the individuals.
Right.
So do we address, next question is, do we address cases on an oldest case first based on when the claimant was filed, or oldest case elevated? Just looking for clarification on how we go through the aging of the claims. So we showed you the pie chart with the aging of claims, and we had the few hundred that are left for March and April. We are working on those first, certainly. And the latter part of that question is about cases that have been elevated to us. Sometimes it's hard for us to know when they go back to. We are working through them as quickly as we can. A lot of them do fall into those buckets that we're already working. So if they are the older claims, we are getting to them first. Mm-hmm. A number of constituents who worked at Margaret Murphy Centers for Children, and about 350 are overdue for Workshare payments. They anticipate a gradual increase in hours as the economy improves. What do you suggest for this group of workers? I would say they need to reach out to our Workshare contacts, and so the folks at Margaret Murphy Centers have somebody assigned to them from our office to work with. They definitely need to work with that person. Mm-hmm. So are there any other questions? And thank you for the comment on the Workshare explanation.
And we'll also check into that particular situation. Yes. Trying to see if there were other questions. So again, over the next week or so, there are a lot of things in the works. There should be some information correspondence going out to some of your constituents who are in that denied UI, but potentially eligible for pandemic unemployment assistance. They should be seeing that. And then we will be rolling out the tax documentation again over the next week or so. The automatic matches will happen first, and then the opportunity for people to provide documentation to us. So I think if there are no more questions, I just want to say thank you to all of you. You know, we know that even one person out there who is not receiving benefits that they're eligible for is one too many. We are doing everything that we can to expedite the process. Folks here continue to work weekends, and we are constantly doing process improvement to make sure that things operate as smoothly as they can given these incredibly unprecedented times. But thank you all very much, and please, if you have questions for next week, the sooner you get those questions to us, the more likely we're going to be able to provide a thorough answer for any of your questions. Thank you for all you're doing.
Thank you.